So always good to check out motivation because it's the creator of who we are. So just reflecting on, yes, I'd like to be more enlightened in my life. I'd like to make better decisions and have the wisdom of the Buddha Dharma. But if we just think of ourselves, it's a bit, well, it's good, but it's a little limited. We could create greater karma if we bring to mind someone that we love and say, I would like to offer them a more enlightened relationship too. And immediately inside of us, something changes a little bit. And that's so we are actually accumulating some karma of bodhicitta. Even if it's just off one person, it's not difficult to take that feeling and then to expand it for the benefit of all sentient beings. That I would love to offer a more enlightened relationship to all sentient beings. So with that thought in mind, then, we're doing the Ganges Mahamudra. I want to review just some of the things that, remember, this is a Yogacharya, or what's called Chitta Mantra, a mind-only school of Buddhist philosophy. And so in looking at that, we have the two truths, relative and ultimate. And in that, then, the relative truth is considered false. And why? Because one, it's only a reflection of your mind. And so in our delusions, we feel things externally truly exist, or we exaggerate them. Then secondly, we actually don't see them for how they really exist. And in this case, it's called other powered. It's not called interdependence. It's called other powered, which in really ways is very similar, just a different phrase. And other powered just means if you look at anything, it was powered by something else. And so that therefore you divest the object again of the exaggeration that you might apply to it. So, I mean, certainly the best one is just when I look at anybody or look at anything around me, I'm only seeing a reflection of what I understand of that. It's huge, you will become the owner of your experience. And so with that, then just that philosophy is very powerful. In fact, it is one of the major philosophies of general Buddhist practitioners. Okay. Anyway, so that's the first one. Mind is the world's about the mind. That we see things as existing externally, which is wrong. That they're powered, and that there is a non-dual direct perception is valid and true. Now, a non-dual just means is that the mind understands itself, and that actually then is, you could say, the ultimate truth. Is a non-dualistic mind is true, or is valid. Okay, so relative truth is invalid, ultimate truth is valid, and then relative truth has those three qualifications of being is merely a reflection of your mind, it is other powered, and that if you did have a direct perception in non-duality, that would be correct. Okay, now, and then just a side thing is that because it comes up in the text, in the Chitta Mantra philosophy, there are 8 consciousnesses. Now we have the 5 sense doors and the mind consciousness. Then number 7 is considered a diluted consciousness, and number 8 is the mind basis of all. So the one that we remove is, or the one that we correct is the number 7, and then the other ones are all correct or valid are proper. They function correctly. We are in correct understanding. So anyway, so that's just to establish that. Now the next thing that I wanted us to do is just to use a little bit of our Western philosophy or Western life to generate some capacities, or let's say some references. So relative truth is said often is merely an illusion. It's like a dream. It's like a reflection in a mirror, or a moon reflected in a dark lake. It's all that. So although it appears vividly, and that's really important, it appears vividly, we know it's not true. And actually the one that I like the best is that if you ever go into a restaurant and they have one whole wall of mirrors, and when you first walk in, you don't realize that. And you look over to the side and you say, oh, there's my friend George. And so you're going to go over there, and then suddenly you realize, oh, your mind takes in the fact that it's a mirror and George is over here. And so at one moment, though, vividly, George was here. I mean, vividly. I mean, and you could say, I mean, this is part of the teaching. It says is that that is a valid phenomena in the sense that it is a mirror clearly reflecting its object. So it has a continuity of causes and circumstances. George over here has his causes and circumstances, his continuity of karma. So they are both equal in being a play of causes and circumstances and such like that. So in that way, they're both valid as for what they are, a play of causes and circumstances, or it can, we say other powered and such and things. But what's interesting is that when you look at the mirror before you realize it was the mirror, you project there, oh, yes, George. And then in one moment you go, oh, and then sort of the idea I have is sort of like you remove this goopy substance, which is your misunderstanding, and you remove it, and then you just see it for what it is, a reflection in a mirror. So you don't exaggerate it anymore. You're not going to go over and talk to the mirror thinking you're talking to George. So that's a very, very good example, one that maybe we can relate to, because there are a lot of restaurants that put mirrors on the wall to make them feel like the restaurant is much bigger. Okay, again, creating an illusion, so we feel we're in a big restaurant. Okay, so that's this relative truth, an example for it. Ultimate truth, again, the traditional examples, and it comes up even in the text, is where you find a place, like you go to a tall building where there's no other buildings are taller, you lie on the roof in the most tall position, and then when you look up, you can only see space of sky, and then you do that. Or if you go to a cliff and you look out into the space of the space in front of the cliff, then you get openness of space of sky. These are examples that Tibetans use, or even in India, I guess. So what we want is then, or if you've ever been in a jet, of course, 30,000 feet, clear sunny day, you look out the window and then allow the plane and your body to keep going. And then you are in the open space of the sky, and then you rest in that. Okay, and so that's an example of the ultimate truth. But why is it considered ultimate? Because you're looking at the nature of a phenomena. I remember Geshe Ngawang Dargye saying, if you take one phenomena and you understand its relative nature, you understand it's a play of causes and circumstances, it's other powered, and such like that. Okay, but when you look at its nature, you've actually touched the nature of all phenomena. So by cognizing the ultimate nature of a phenomena, you immediately have access to all phenomena. And so that's called the one taste of reality. The great Yogi Milarepa often use that word, the one taste of reality, that once you properly understood the ultimate perspective, nature of reality, that you have the one taste of reality. Now, you could bring that back to a relative perspective, phenomena are appearing, but you're able to understand the one taste of them all. They all are just equally interdependent and such like that, or other powered. Okay, so that's just the foundation of what we've been doing. And then if we move to the text, I'm sorry, so I'm getting my text up here. So we had, I think, 6 examples, and I don't have a piece of paper right here anyway. But then what in space, what is resting on what? So if you're in the space of the sky, what's resting on what? The example also comes actually in Madhyamika a little bit, but a little different philosophy, but it still applies, is how do you define hot? Well, you only can define hot by comparison to something that's cooler, or how do you define up? Well, because you have to have down. Or how do you define large? Because you have to have something small. So those are called interdependence by comparison. Okay, but in this case, we're talking of, interdependence, other power, the ultimate nature of reality, not by comparison. So the thing is, if you were to have the open space of the sky, there's no other place that it's resting on. It's just all open space of the sky. And what you try to do is you catch this sort of, we call it openness. Again, in an earlier class, I mentioned there's normally, you can say traditionally 4 wisdoms we can talk of, things are always changing. That's a wisdom consciousness, but they don't change arbitrarily. They have a continuity of causes and circumstances or other powered. Okay, that's the second wisdom. Okay, understanding things, that they are other powered or interdependent. Okay, and then they are all empty of self-existence. Okay, or they're merely a reflection of my mind. They're not, so those ones. I just think that in our Western language, we could put in, again, it's a bridge, a step. It's not the ultimate presentation. We call openness. So things are impermanent. They have continuities of causes and circumstances. They are other powered. They're all open, or you say interdependent, they're all open, empty of self-existence. So this is a suggestion. I think it's called a Jampa commentary rather than something that's traditional from our Buddhist teachings, but that would be good. So the thing is that when you do that, when you say, okay, well, is space resting on space? So you put yourself at 30,000 feet, you let the plane and body keep going, you are the open space of the sky. Okay, and as you do that, then you say, well, I'm touching the nature of all phenomena, and it's universal. And then you have this sort of like, maybe you have this sort of experience of openness, which then that's sort of, it's that you're affirming something, but what you want is a non-affirmation, which should then be just empty of self-existence. And so the words are actually are important to look at. Okay, then the next example, looking in the middle of the sky, not seeing anything. In the same way, the mind looks at the mind, thoughts stop, and you attain the ends as possible. So the idea is that you just have, again, you open the space of the sky. If that is consciousness, okay, it's not taking up individual forms because they're all just a reflection of the mind. Again, you're looking at the nature of reality. Then it says, just as vapor rises from the earth and creates clouds, and then those clouds dissipate, and stuff like that. So thoughts just due to some causes to arise, manifest, and then they evaporate. So like that should try to take it that our thoughts are not truly self-existent, or as you say, we don't exaggerate them. Okay. Then the nature of space transcends color and shape. That's a traditional example of if you put glass on top of a colored piece of cloth, that the glass assumes the aspect of the blue and the red and the green of the cloth that it's resting on, like brocade or something like that. But the actual nature of glass is transparency. So the same way, if you understand that the mind is like that, the glass, it's a transparency, lucidity, transparency, then although it can take on various shapes and forms, its actual nature is not that. It is just the clear light. And clear light like clear glass, I guess you could say. Okay, so when you understand that, then the mind is not it is never obscured or affected by the various colors and shapes of virtue and non-virtue or wrongdoing. Then another virtue is the luminous heart of the sun. It never has darkness. So the nature of your mind has always been luminous. Therefore, there's never been an obscuration of it. Okay. Then we imply open space, the final one, I think. Yeah. Just as we apply the term empty space, the fact that it is nothing within space. Now that one's actually really good. Again, you think planet Earth moving through space, and space that's out of the way. No, space is not obstruction. So other than being a mental designation, space is not a something. But we can talk about, planet Earth moves through space. So the same thing, the nature of reality is not it's just merely a designation. It is not a something that gets out of the way. Or if we go to the Heart Sutra, form here is only emptiness, emptiness is only form, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no form. Feeling, thought, and choice, consciousness itself are the same as this. All dharmas here are empty, all of the primal void, none are born or die, nor do they wax or wane, and do the same, they're pure. So like that. So that's sort of the Heart Sutra, the Japanese version, which is a little bit easier to memorize. But anyway, so that like that, then again, the nature of reality is not a something that is applied to those phenomena. It is an understanding, but it's not something that it's not a something. Okay, so like that kind of thing. So in that way, the nature of the mind is from beginning has been like space. There is no dharmas that are not included within that. So it's sort of the universal state of consciousness, the one taste of all things. So those examples, maybe one of them touches you a little bit better, so that you can use that to then start to accumulate or to gather to an experience of the ultimate nature of reality, a non-dualistic. Now, one thing that Lama Yeshe often talked about, he said, if you have the open space of the sky, often you are viewing space of the sky. So, for example, the jet at 30,000 feet keeps going with your body. you are in the space of the sky, and then you have the sense of being the observer. So what you have to do is you have to diminish the subjective objective side of it, that I am open space of the sky. And again, it's not a something. Anyway, so like that. So you work with the various examples to try to gain an experience about it. So then it comes into the commentaries. This is where we stopped off the last class. It says, so abandoning all physical actions, the practitioner should rest at ease without any verbal utterance. Your speech becomes like an echo, sound inseparable from emptiness. Think of nothing whatsoever with the mind and look at the dharmas of the leap, dharmas of reality, I guess, or dharmas beyond comprehension. The body is without meaning, like a bamboo stalk. The mind is like the midst of space. It is inconceivable. Rest, relax within that without letting go or placing it. Rest and relaxed in the state without seeing it or placing it, letting it go or attempting to place it. There's sort of I like the example if we can think of, for example, winter is coming. So we often think that winter comes from up north in Arctic, or if you're in the south, I guess if you're in the southern hemisphere, from the Antarctic. Okay, so we think of winter comes down, but that's not, winter doesn't come from anywhere. It's merely a dynamic that changes. You know, the circumstances change. So we can say, yes, you know, winter manifests due to the causes and circumstances, but winter does not come from the Arctic, okay? And that's where, again, where our mind objectifies things and then isolates them, and then of course makes them independently existent or exaggerates them. Interesting sort of thoughts again. So you always have to remember, we do not destroy the experience of what we have. We are not nihilistic, but rather we are setting up dynamics of appreciating there is a relative perception which is correct. In this case, it's a non-dualistic perception of that things are other powered and that they merely are a reflection of my mind. Okay, so that is valid. I mean, what you're looking at is valid. You know, I'm going to say, well, actually, it's not. It is appropriate. It's just not valid, but it's appropriate. Okay, and so you rest in a non-dualistic, one taste of reality, but phenomena are manifesting. You know, again, other powered and merely a reflection of my mind. And then if you then shift the mind into a more deeper mode of just the nature of the phenomena, then you have open space of the sky. Okay, then the mind has no direction. It is, if the mind has no direction, it's Mahamudra. With this, you attain unsurpassable awakening. For those who follow Tantra and the vehicles of the Paramitas, the Vinaya Sutras, and the various teachings of the Buddha, with the attachment to their individual textual traditions and their individual philosophy, will not come to see luminous Mahamudra, because the seeing of that luminosity or clear light is obscured by their intention and attitude. So again, it's, you know, I like to think of it in terms of the Buddha's work for the benefit of all sentient beings, whether you're a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, or Jewish, or whatever you are. Enlightened beings work for the benefit of everybody. And that gives you that sense of sort of the universality of it. So, you know, yes, we sometimes get a little bit obsessive about my lineage. I'm Karma Kargyu, I'm Drikung Kargyu, I'm Gelupa, I'm Sakyapa, I'm Nor Monastery, or whatever. There's all the different things we can do. And no, those are the things that help us gain our understanding. But the bottom line is that, you know, to be a bodhisattva, the benefit for all universal sentient beings, and finally become a Buddha. So again, we have to be a little careful that we don't exaggerate again our particular tradition. Okay, but at the end, he will talk about Tantra here. Tilopa, when he's talking to Naropa, he does talk about Tantra and the practice of it as being a tool towards gaining Mahamudra. But this, we don't overemphasize it as being the most important thing. The conception of maintenance of vows actually causes you to impair the meaning of samaya. Without mental directedness or mental activity, be free of intentionality. The thoughts are self-arising and self-pacified, like designs on the surface of water. Again, each one of those is a little bit of an analogy, which may be like, you know, I mean, you put a stick and you put some lines in the water, and there's lines there for a second, and then all the water just goes smooth again. So like that, again, use that as an example for your mind. The There's another one that I like using, which is if you've ever been, snorkeling. I mean, or you could say scuba diving, but then snorkeling is a bit easier because you don't need equipment, you don't need a special test. But I've been in Cozumel, and actually I was in Fiji once too. And so, if you're up on the surface of the water, it's very agitating. You get bounced by the waves and pushed around and this and that. In fact, I can get hurt by that and things like that. And so the example is, and this comes straight out of Lama Chopa, when we're pushed by the wind and the waves of karma and delusion. Okay, so if you're like a ball floating on the surface of the water, you're buffeted by the wind and the waves and you're pushed around. And that's being very external, superficial about how we're experiencing things. Whereas if we could grab the ball and we pull it down inside the water is clear. I mean, this is where you need to be sort of in Fiji or in Cozumel or wherever, a nice tropical place. Okay, so you're down inside the water, all of a sudden it's calm. And that's your shine, that's your shamatha, that you're able to be more deeper within your own consciousness. And it's calm. You're not buffeted by the thoughts and feelings and emotions, or what we could call karma and delusions or misunderstandings. You're not buffeted by those anymore. You have a deeper thing. Now, there's still currents there, which move you a little bit, but you do have a better ability. And then the analogy straight out of Lama Chopa is our Guru Puja is that, as I cross the ocean of samsara, may I not be attacked by the denizens of the deep, the sharks and the barracudas of the ocean, which are delusions, so if you get, or I guess the octopus of attachment and the shark of anger or something like that. Okay. Actually, I remember when I was in Fiji, and this was a long time ago, but anyway, and I was with a group of other young guys, and we were all swimming off of the Pacific side of the ocean, because normally in the islands you try to swim in between the islands so that you're a little bit more secure. So he said, "Oh no, let's go to the deeper part," and this is where that suddenly drops off. It goes down like 50, 100 foot deep, and then goes into the Pacific Ocean, which goes for hundreds and thousands of miles. Anyway, so we're swimming along the edge of this where it dropped off really deeply, but there's these really huge boulders and things that down maybe 10, 20 feet into the water. And so I came over the top of one of these big boulders, and as I came over the top, I looked down. There's a barracuda, and a freaking huge animal, and its eye is about this big. And so it was floating there, just resting, and then it rolled onto its side. So it was looking up, and I'm looking down straight into its eyes, maybe like 2 yards below me, and I'm going like, whoa, and then it opens its mouth, and there's just nothing but this incredible line of teeth, and it goes like this, and then it just goes, and it just moves by, goes like with its body, and then it's gone. It goes so fast. They're really, really fast fish. In fact, actually, that's how they catch their prey, is that they hit them at a really high velocity and knock them out, and then they can bite them, things like that. Anyway, I'm off topic a bit, but the example is that as designs on a water can disappear. The analogy can also be, if I get a little deeper in my consciousness, it's a bit calmer, which is I'm in my shamatha, I'm in my mindfulness, my calm abiding. Okay, and if you have some clarity, and this comes up in the example again with Tilopa, is if you let the turbulence of the mind calm, it's like the mud in the water settles to the bottom, and then you can perceive things around. And again, Geshe Rapton used the example. He says, if you have some calm abiding mindfulness, and then the turbulence of your mind settles, and it says the little fish of investigation can swim around in the water in the clarity and perceive things better. So these analogies, they all work well because they give us a stepping stone towards having better understanding. So if you do not pass beyond the meaning, which is not abiding and not conceptualizing or focusing, then through not passing beyond that, you do not pass beyond or transgress samaya. This is the torch that dispels obscurity or darkness. Okay, so you're resting in consciousness, but consciousness that is clear light. And that's where then it says, just as in the heart of the sun, one of the examples, the heart of the sun, there's never been darkness. So when you understand your own consciousness better, there's never been obscurity and misunderstanding. If free of all intention, you do not abide in extremes, you will see without exception the meaning of all the Buddha's teachings and all the sections of the Buddha's teachings. And that I like that in the sense, again, if you think of Nagarjuna's commentary, again, that's more Madhyamika, but I think Nagarjuna in some things, I think in Guhya Samaja, he does refer to Chittamantram philosophy. All of the philosophers that were yogis utilize both of those in their practice. So again, form here is only emptiness, emptiness is a form is no emptiness, so he's treating thought and choice like that. So again, you don't have the extreme. Something, does it exist? Does it not exist? Does it both exist and not exist? Does neither not exist? Okay, so that's out of the Heart Sutra. If you rest in this, you'll be liberated from the prison of samsara. If you rest evenly within this, all of your wrongdoings and obligations will be burned. This is called for this is called the torch of the doctrine. And again, how is that possible? Well, if your mind no longer conceives of itself as independent, self-existent, the basis for all of your wrongdoings ceases. And so therefore you are liberated from all your wrongdoings. In this case, it says burned. Well, they evaporate because the foundation for delusion is no longer there. Now that is a high meditative experience. It's not something that's sort of like easily available, but the thing is, it's good to appreciate it, that my anger that I'm feeling is just my exaggeration of this situation. And that if I could rest in the state of a non-dualistic consciousness, I would actually liberate myself from my anger. Again, a little bit hard, but it's good to at least have the understanding. Foolish people who have no interest in this will only continually be carried off by the river of samsara. These foolish people experiencing intolerable sufferings in the lower stages are worthy of compassion. And that's, sometimes it is difficult, especially when you hear of atrocities, like what's going on in Israel and even in Ukraine and things like that. And you think, oh, there's bad people, and why did they do that? Well, no, but they're the object of compassion. They are thinking that this is how to be happy, like invading another country or causing violence or killing people. That's a way to be happy. It's not. And so they are an object of compassion. If you think of it that way, you can feel compassion to the people that do atrocities, because your compassion is based on they don't understand how to have proper happiness or correct happiness. Wishing to attain liberation from the intolerable suffering, rely on a wise guru. With the guru's blessings entering your heart, your mind will be liberated. These things of samsara are meaningless or pointless, causing of suffering. And since all of these things that have been done or made are pointless, look at that which is meaningful. And that's basically your graduated path. We all know in the graduated path, very normally first is taught guru yoga. And I think it's really important. The actual Sanskrit word is called Kalyana Mitra, which is spiritual friend. And so when you look at the guru mentors my enlightenment. They help me become enlightened. That's the correct view of the guru. Now, I don't know if we talked about it in the previous class, but if you feel that your teacher has maybe some deeper understandings, if you appreciate that as a teacher, not how they look, they're tall or short or anything, then that is the correct view of guru yoga. It's not like that the movements of my guru's body is the actions of a Buddha. That's a little bit difficult. But if you look at them and you say they have experienced clear light consciousness, they have maybe opened their central channel, they have an understanding of reality, they have compassion for the benefit of all, that's actually a blessing to your own mind. And I would say that's the correct way to understand guru yoga. Maybe back at the time of Marpa or Tilopa and Naropa, those gurus, and with the students that they had, there was a possibility to be quite aggressive with them. But I think nowadays that, well, one, if you're a teacher and you're aggressive, you'll mostly get arrested for abuse. So it doesn't work anymore. So gurus that do that. So I think it's a good meaning that having compassion. I think of the great gurus like Tara Rinpoche or Lhasa Rinpoche. They were just so compassionate. They never were, aggressive or such with their students, and it's like they just were love and compassion. And so for ourselves as practitioners, we should try to take that as who we should be. Okay. if you are beyond all grasping of an object and grasping of a subject, that's a non-dualistic mind, that is the monarch of all views. If there is no distraction, it is the monarch of meditations. If there's no effort, it's the monarch of all conducts. If there is no hope or fear, that is the final result in the fruition of being attained. So if you're able to rest in your own non-dualistic, clear light consciousness from an ultimate perspective, you have, well, that would be the ultimate perspective, and then you apply that in a relative view of all phenomena are other powered and merely a reflection of my mind, then you have that attainment. Okay. It is beyond being the object of conceptual focus. The mind's nature is lucidity. There is no path to be traversed, and yet, in this way, you enter into the path of Buddhahood. There is no object of meditation, but if you become accustomed to this, you will attain the unsurpassable awakening. Now, again, actually, it's interesting. If you look at refuge and what's called the path, the actual definition of the path is your stream of consciousness. And when you take refuge being protection, you take protection under an umbrella from the rain. Well, we take refuge under an umbrella from the rain. You take refuge to be, away from the sufferings. Okay, so when you have that understanding, then that the path is the flow of your consciousness. And if even you apply a little bit of, for example, the wisdom that things are always changing, you protected yourself. That's your refuge. Or if you understand that something is happening, it's happening because of causes and circumstances. It's not arbitrary. So if something's happening to you, an illness or even something good, whatever, okay, there's causes and circumstances for that. It wasn't an arbitrary event or an arbitrary happening. So like that, then, that understanding is your refuge. So those are important points, and they're straight out of the graduated path that they say those things. It just, sometimes we don't remember that so much, but that's important. So just remember that the mind's nature is lucidity. That is your actual path is the flow of your consciousness. Okay, and so therefore, when you understood the flow of your consciousness, that's where it says no path is to be traversed. It's because I guess you embody it. I mean, again, we're just working words. Thoroughly examine mundane things or the things of the world. If you do, you will see that none of them persist. None of them are capable of permanence. And in that sense, they are like the dreams and magical illusions. Dreams and magical illusions are meaningless. Therefore, generate the renunciation and abandon the mundane concerns. So that's again using the analogy of illusions, or like dreams. Or he says magical illusions. Well, we don't really have that, but we have 3D movies. So go to a 3D movie, you have the glasses on, it looks like, again, the dinosaur stuck its head out of the screen, lift it up, and you don't have that anymore. So that's like that. So the next time you're getting angry at somebody, just remember to sort of lift up the glasses of your delusion, your misunderstanding, and say, okay, the dynamic of causes and circumstances, not self-existent. Again, that person is other powered by many other factors, and so therefore they are the object of compassion. Cut through the bonds of attachment and aversion towards those around you and your surroundings. Meditate in isolated retreats, forests, and so forth, living alone. Remain in a state within meditation. When you attain that which is without attainment, you have attained Mahamudra, which is nice. I was a monk and I lived in India for 14 years. I did actually 5 years of retreat. I did 2 years of preliminary practices and then 3 years of a particular tantric deity and such, and under the guidance of Kavji Lingam Poche. It was really nice, I was lucky. But saying that, I'm not saying, oh, look, I'm so wonderful. No, if having done that, I then returned to Canada. It was very hard. The cultural environment was not supportive of being a monk, and for some reason I didn't end up in an FPMT center. I don't know why, but anyway, I ended up back in Canada. And so I returned my ordination because it's very hard to maintain it, 253 vows. So I returned that, but I'm still a Buddhist practitioner and such like that. But then all of that time in retreat had to be applied. I got married. I adopted 2 children and brought them up. And so if I couldn't do a good job there, what was the meaning of all of that retreat? Nothing. So I think that really being a lay person, and I'm not trying to identify this as sort of being ordained as a monk or a nun gives you unbelievable freedom. You don't have to answer to anybody. You want to go to a teaching somewhere, you go into teaching, and you don't have to say, oh, my partner, my wife, my husband, or my partner. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to go away. No, you don't have to say that. You just do it because you're a monk or a nun. You're liberated from all of those things. Now, we as lay people, we have relationships and we have responsibilities and things like that. So it's a little bit difficult. But we have the field where we have to really practice. Now, again, I was a monk and I can say really good. You have a chance to practice and stuff. And then there's still, even with being a monk or nun, there's still all these issues and things that go on. There's still some samsara there, isn't there? But my point being is that we as lay people are in the actual battleground of samsara, and so therefore we really have to practice well. So anyway, long and short of it is that as a lay person, we really have to learn how to have love and compassion for people that are complicated. You really have to have patience, and so that is something that maybe we should look at. Hey, we're okay, as lay people, we have the ground of where we really have to work on ourselves. If you are ordained or if you're single, take advantage of it. Practice really, really hard. Make the Dharma part of your heart, part of your life. And then if you were to go and be in a relationship, whether it's just with other Sangha members or whether it's with a partner, you can now apply what you practiced as a single person when you had the freedom to do all of those things, okay? Anyway, cut through one of her. Okay, I read that first, sorry. For example, if a single root of a tree of a trunk with many branches, leaves, flowers, and fruit is cut, the 10,000 or 100,000 branches that automatically die. In the same way, if the root of mind is cut through, that means you understand it, the branches and leaves of samsara will dry up. For example, just as a darkness that is accumulated over 1,000 aeons is dispelled by the light of a single torch, in the same way, the instance of wisdom of the clear light of one's mind dispels all the ignorance, wrongdoing, and obscurations accumulated through numerous eons. And so that's, it's like, maybe it's been dark in somewhere for a really long time, but all you have to do is if you turn on a flashlight or you turn on a light, the darkness disappears. And then the most interesting thing is the darkness doesn't run out the windows and the doors. The darkness just disappears. So when you think of your delusions, my anger, my attachments, my possessiveness, my jealousy, my competitiveness, all of those things, if you have wisdom, they disappear because the foundation for them isn't there anymore. It's not like, again, to come back to the example, when I turn on the light in a dark room, the darkness doesn't run out the door and the windows. The darkness ceases to function. Okay, that's interesting, yeah. Keho. The intellect cannot see that which is beyond conceptual mind. Okay, your intellect can't do it, but you need your intellect to go to organize yourself. But then the actual experience is non-intellectual. You will never realize that which is uncreated through creating dharmas. If you wish to attain and realize that which is beyond the intellect and is uncreated, then scrutinize your mind and strip awareness naked. Okay, whatever it says. Allow the cloudy water of thought. Now, this is the example with Geshe Rapton used and stuff. Allow the cloudy water of thought to clarify itself. And you do that with shamatha, or to clear itself. Do not attempt to stop or create appearances. Leave them as they are. If you are without acceptance or rejection of external appearances, if all that appears and exists will be liberated as mudra. So the example is just, again, it's all a reflection of your mind, okay? And so if you can pull yourself, like the example I gave of being like in Cozumel or in Fiji, you pull yourself down deeper in the water and there it's more peaceful. The dust of the turbulence of the sand and such settles to the bottom, then you can see things really vividly and you can understand yourself, okay? The all basis is unborn. So this is the 8th consciousness in the Chittamatra philosophy. And without the unborn, all basis of, okay. The all basis is unborn. And without that unborn all basis, abandon all relinquished habits, wrongdoings, and obscurations. Therefore, Do not fixate or reckon. Rest in the essence of the unborn and in the unborn nature. In this state of appearances is fully apparent, and within the experience of vivid appearances, allow concepts to be exhausted and dissolved. Now, what's interesting with this is, you can flip back to Nagarjuna. Why are things either not existent or non-existent? Because they never came into existence in the first place. They're unborn. It's a really interesting thought. Like, we think of, we sort of say, oh, this exists. And then we say, oh, no, now I'm studying Buddhism. No, it doesn't exist. No. What you didn't understand, whatever you're observing never was born. It never had a first moment. So again, these are just interesting thoughts. They make you reflect on things a little bit. Okay. Okay. Complete liberation from all conceptual extremes is the supreme monarch of views. Boundless vastness is the supreme monarch of all meditations. Being directionless and utterly impartial is the supreme conduct of conduct. Self-liberation beyond expectations or hope is the supreme result of fruition. So there's your view, practice, or view, meditation, and conduct. Those are the three things. Often Milarepa often refers to those. Again, he was a little bit more Chittamantran in his philosophy and such. So there you have the those. And again, okay. I remember I'm not a scholar of this particular class, and when I was requested by Losan, I merely said, I will do an overview of this, but I'll try to give some key points. I think the more important things were the first classes, where really you have build up some structure about how we're going to experience this. Then you read this and such. And of course, the best commentator was Tanguru Rinpoche. I received this lineage from him. He has quite a few, I think, YouTube videos out there, which you could watch and things. They're good to add to your knowledge and experience. Okay, for a beginner, it is like the vast current running through a narrow bed or defile. In the middle or after that, it becomes a gentle flow of the river Ganges. In the end, it is like the flowing of all rivers into the mother ocean. It is like the meeting of the mother and a child of all rivers. So that's just again, often if you have an analogy of like, what's it like? So, if you're a flow like a river, and then it goes into a channel or something that's very narrow, and the water gets all agitated and stuff like that. That's like you've got suddenly circumstances where you're getting intense, and so it's all agitating. And then when it gets past that, and then it all calms down, it's like you're combining your shine, your samadhi, your mindfulness. Okay, relax again. And then again, some situation of long, all of a sudden it's all intense and white water and river like that, that's what we're deluded, Okay. Those with little intellect, if they find they cannot remain in this state, may apply our holding techniques of the breathing or emphasize the essence of awareness. Through many techniques or branches, such as gazing, that's where I was talking about looking off a cliff or something, or holding the mind, tightening awareness until it stays put, exerting tension and effort until awareness comes to rest in the state of its nature. Now, when I was in my retreat, there's a Geshe Tupto who's very special. He's a really great Lama. He actually lived in Sarnath, and he was one of the resident Geshe's teachers there in the Sarnath University of Tibetan Buddhist Studies. It was just outside of Benares. It's in Sarnath, yeah. Anyway, and he was so renounced. He would get a stipend every month of maybe, let's say, 1,000 rupees. Okay, he'd then turn around and give it to all the students. He didn't keep any of it, and yet he had food and things like that. But he never kept anything, and that was the way he was this whole time. Then he came to Dharamsala when he finally, I guess, retired, and he went up in the mountain, and he lived just below my retreat hut and stuff, and he was doing his high tantric practices. And again, just so, nothing but compassion and kindness and peacefulness. Very thin little man, very sweet. Anyway, so in my retreat, I found that I was just having too many thoughts. I couldn't somehow thin them. And I never went to the village for 3 years. I lived up on the side of a mountain, with a couple other Tibetan meditators in my little area and stuff. So I asked him about how could I maybe deal with that, and he said breathing. And so there was a breathing technique that he instructed me, and it's you have to train yourself. It's quite hard. It took me 2 to 3 months to do this, but you inhale for first 10 seconds, you hold for 10 seconds, and then you exhale for 10 seconds. Now you can do a fourth one on that. Inhale for 10 seconds, hold for 10 seconds, exhale for 10 seconds, rest for 10 seconds, and then, but I found that one too hard. So anyway, so I did in like that. And this one, it gives you get palpitations, your body jerks and things. It's very uncomfortable. But with practice, then you get that. I got up to 20 seconds. I could inhale for 30 seconds, continuous sort of like inhalation, very slow, hold for 30 seconds, and then exhale for 30 seconds. That's a minute and a half. And it's a physical thing, but you're focused on that. And with that, then your mind becomes very, very calm. It was quite interesting. So Geshe Thupta helped me a great deal with sort of getting my crazy mind a little bit more under control. So that's one technique. Again, it's called it's pranayama. It's type of pranayama. I think there's a book by Iyengar called Pranayama. So you want to read that, you can study that. But I must admit that it was really hard. I had to be in retreat to do that. And I did 30 sessions a day of that, 30, 40 sessions a day of that breathing exercise. And it took me 2 to 3 months to get up to 30 seconds. But anyway, just commenting off topic a bit, but that is one way you can really calm the intellect. Okay, through many techniques. So there's other ones. And then that's where I said gazing. So that's where you go to the top of a tall building, you lie on your back, looking up into the space of the sky, or you go to a cliff where you can look out into the space. And it's pretty open. Or again, the example we have of our imagination with being in a jet at 30,000 feet. All of those are little ones. Then there's ones where you tighten attention and then relax it. Alan Wallace is a friend of mine. He's of course much more in the Mapa tradition now, but he really focuses on nature of the mind and stuff. He has a lot of those. He presents a lot of those techniques. It's sort of funny. I lived in India for 14 years and everything like that. And then finally I was in Canada for 18 years teaching, and Ellen and I were in touch a little bit. And then at a later date, I went to a retreat of his because I thought, well, look, he's been focusing on nature of the mind all this time. I did Tantra, deity practices, visualizations, mandalas, and everything like that. So what's going on here, you know? So I attended his 10-day retreat. It was just in Northern California. I forget where exactly. And I was really intrigued. I wanted to see what he had to say and things like that. And so it was a very good teaching. I really appreciated it. And he talked about depths of consciousness and a lot of what's this sort of Dzogchen point of view, though. And then at the end of it, though, then we had a chance to sit down and talk. And because he'd done a lot of retreat also, we talked about just sort of our experiences. And what was intriguing was, if you are a serious practitioner, whether you do nature of mind or whether you do deity practices, which doesn't exclude that, you will have very similar experiences. And so I can say that the two of us, we actually understood each other, even though we did different techniques, because it's all on mind. It's all in states of consciousness. Quite interesting. Okay, so anyway, there's Tilopa just talks about that there are different things to help you. And then the final version of this is just Mahamudras, Tantra. If you rely on Karma Mudra, wisdom of bliss and emptiness will arise. Enter into the union, having consecrated the Upila or method and the Aprana or knowledge. Slowly let it fall and send it down, coil it and turn it back up, lead it to its proper place, finally spread it and cause it to pervade the whole body. Now that's where you can do either what's called a visualized consort or a real one. I think that's more complicated, but a visualized one. And you generate a lot of sensation. Then you have the descending blisses, you have the arising bliss, and then you dissipate it through your body. It's all tantric technique in the completion stage practices and such. Lama Yeshe talks a lot about it in his The Bliss of Inner Fire. It's a book he does, and it's presented very much for lay people and such. That's a good book to read if you want, but that's pretty much what this is referring to. It's tantric techniques. Finally, spread it and allow it to pervade your whole body. If there is no attachment or craving, the wisdom of bliss and emptiness will appear. You will possess longevity without white hair. You will be healthy like a waxing moon. Your complexion will be lustrous, and you will be as powerful as a lion. You will quickly attain the common cities and attainments. You will come to a light and attain the supreme city as well. Okay, and that refers to that really the basis of Anuttara Yoga Tantra, and this is Anuttara Yoga, not the lower tantras, is that it's the hormonal secretions in your body and such. And it's one, you change your attitude, you identify with being the deity. Okay. Then within that, then you clean up your nervous system. That's the nerve, like the chakras and things, you make them. There's three faults with your nervous system. They are blocked, crooked, or dry. Okay, so when your nervous system is no longer blocked, it has not got kinks in it, and it has got humidity, like that, all the nervous system, then the nervous system is very alive. Then you within that, and the third thing is you generate the bliss, which is the arising or descending and arising blisses and such like that. All of that's based on your body, yoga, being healthy, and then hormonal secretions and all of that. So that's that's where then it says, you'll have black hair. I didn't practice very well, did I? Okay, and you'll be healthy like the waxing moon. You'll be less serious and things like that. So it's referring to like this. That there's actually, there's a commentary, and this is off topic a bit. They did some research that older people who have regular sex, like how are they health-wise? Okay, and we're talking about people in their 70s and 80s and stuff like that. That what they found was that the main thing was is that if you're older, if your hormonal system is still being stimulated, with physical intercourse, then basically there's a lot more cause for being healthy compared to sort of being, I guess, dried up and withered and such like that. So then I thought, when I heard that information, I thought, well, what about monks and nuns? Well, they do visualizations of being in union with consort, and whether it's Heruka or Vajrayini or whatever deity you pick, and so they are accomplishing that, and so therefore that they are doing equivalent to what this research said about older people who still have a physical intimacy. Okay, and again, so of course for those of us that are single, well then you have your tantra practice, Anuttara Yoga. For those of you that are in a relationship, well, to the best of your ability, try to remain fairly active, at least affectionate with the partner that you have, if you do. Obviously a little bit off topic, but this comes up. This is the final verse of Tilopa's text, and we all know that Tilopa did teach the Heruka and Tantras to Naropa, and then Naropa did transmit them to Marpa and stuff like that. Okay, these instructions are the essential point of Mahamudra, and may they abide in the hearts of worthy and fortunate beings. This was bestowed on the banks of the river Ganges by the great and glorious Siddha Tilopa, who had realized Mahamudra upon the Kashmiri Pandit Naropa, who was both learned and realized. And after Naropa was engaged in 12 hardships and austerities, this was translated and written down in Pulari, that's just outside of Dharamsala actually, in the north, by the great Naropa and the great Tibetan translator, the king among translators, Marpa Choki Lodro. So this is very interesting. It comes directly from Tilopa to Naropa, then to Marpa, and then down to us, and then of course to Migalupa. So that concludes what you could cite in sort of like a transmission of the Ganges Mahamudra. As far as I'm concerned, really the first two classes are the ones which are of most value because they establish a foundation for what you're doing. This other class, again, is good. Obviously, I did a very light overview of them. I just basically read it, made small commentaries, so I'm certainly not claiming that this is a deeply insightful presentation. But as a Western tea practitioner, and having taken teachings from many different teachers, that I just wanted to share something at the request of Lobsang. So anyway, that concludes pretty much the presentation. It took 50 minutes, 55 minutes, that's good. So Lou, you're the great, wonderful person here. And for those of you that did maybe miss the class last week, I'm so sorry. I was in an airport picking somebody up and the plane was late, so I couldn't do the class. But anyway, for those of you that weren't aware of that, then there were 4 classes of the Mahamudra. So thank you very, very much. Now, we should dedicate this before we end. And unless, Lou, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. But okay. It was good. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now dedication. Again, there's an example I like, which is if you were a stick of incense, basically, you don't have to have any intentionality. You just basically, you are incense, you're burning, and the perfume that you create, the fragrance, it goes in the room depending on the wind and the movements and stuff like that. And so, as a practitioner, if we just sincerely abide in our wisdom and our compassion, we don't really have to be concerned about where it goes. It'll go wherever it goes, whoever gets touched by it, and things like that. So being an authentic person in our wisdom and compassion is really the core of what we want to be. And however that spreads, that perfume spreads, well, it'll spread according to the circumstances. We don't need to be concerned about it. So we don't need to be that. The intentionality is being an authentic practitioner. So for those of us that attended the teachings on Ganges Mahamudra, then for the time that we spent doing the class, for all the meditations we've done, for all that we've done from the past to the present, and what we might possibly do into the future, we take all that and we dedicate it to having a more enlightened life. And we offer that for the benefit of all. And so with some of the Tibetan prayers, Ngewaji in your do da lama sange no wajigam all ba gis ala do varsho chanted and rimboje magi bon and yewa nyama mebe yong on the varsho yewa kundo yama namadan rame jogi bala on the thing sadalangi on the dorji changi gopa near sho. So thank you very much to the Dharma Center, Norbu Ring, I believe.
Yeah.
And to Lou and to Losan for requesting this, and to all of you, thank you so much.
And thank you. It was wonderful.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.